Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining. I'm very happy for this interview. I'm excited to be joined today by Sanji, who is a Senior Vice President of AI and Analytics at Optum, which is part of United Health Group. Sanji works in the intersection of healthcare, AI, and analytics, three very hot fields with significant opportunities. We haven't discussed in this channel healthcare and software in healthcare in the past. I'm very happy about this. Fun fact, we both worked together at Nokia. That's how we know each other. And today we won't have a video from Sanji due to some technical difficulties, but content is still going to be the same and hopefully quite useful. So to start the conversation, maybe you can tell us more about your current role at Optum and how does it differ from other parts maybe of United Health Group, which I think most people are familiar with. I think it's the largest healthcare insurance in the US, right?
Yeah, we are the largest. Our United Health Group is comprised of United Healthcare and Optum, and United Healthcare is the largest private insurer here in the U.S. Today, I drive product management for a common AI ML platform that we call United AI Studio. It was born out of a need for us not only to leverage the best in machine learning and analytics to deliver great healthcare, but also a need to recognize a recognition that when we use analytics in a healthcare setting, when we use machine learning in a healthcare setting, and probably like other industries too, but more tunely to healthcare, we really need to deliver high quality, low risk methods and capabilities. And United AI Studio aims to understand the lineage, both data and code, and provide the metrics to evaluate things consistently, and provide a common set of resources for us to know when and where these analytics are being used throughout our business to support that effort and to sort of de-risk some of the potential risks of using these, not so much in the delivery of healthcare, but even in the administrative healthcare, like billing, rework, payment integrity, things like that, that are so important to, but somewhat boring functions of the healthcare system.
Interesting. Yeah, thank you for this background. And something I'm interested in is we used to work together at Nokia. That's like a software company, mobile software back then, and devices as well. And you transitioned into healthcare. Any thoughts about this transition as someone coming from software into healthcare? And also, what was maybe surprising or challenging in this transition?
Yeah, so I made my transition almost 9 years ago. And even back then, as it is today, what we know of as healthcare in the United States, it represents the largest sector of our economy, almost, anywhere from like 16 to 80% of our gross domestic product. And so, it's a massive part of our economy. Yet at the time, I know I saw a doctor and I interacted with this system, but I didn't understand how it worked. And so I was excited to embark on that journey. And I was lucky enough, and I say lucky because I don't think I even understood how United Health Group operated, but I was lucky enough to land at a place that was really at sort of the center of so many aspects of the healthcare system. And maybe that's what makes it hard coming from software. You hear the term quote unquote healthcare, but at the scale of being 18% of GDP, it's so many sub components, almost like industries within industries, whether it's like sciences, whether it's being a provider, being an insurer or a payer, operating at a government level, both in the state and federal. are just some of the ways you could look at this sector.
Interesting. Yeah, so let's assume that maybe somebody who's listening to us now is a recent CS major, like where I teach, maybe a master student just finished CS, or maybe somebody with some experience, maybe looking at new opportunities. And they're looking into the healthcare space. It's a massive space, as you mentioned, 80% of GDP. Uh, you've been in this space for almost a decade. Maybe what's a good way to kind of think about, should the people think about maybe like the difference, let's say hospitals, insurance companies, medical devices, companies, like maybe what's a good way to kind of segment it? Let's say you don't know anything about healthcare and you just, well, the opportunities.
I mean, I think there are a number of methods people have taken to segment the industry, and you touched on some of them. Um, Hospitals and physicians, commonly referred to as providers, is one segment, maybe. Um, Insurance companies, whether it be private insurers like us or the federal government through the Medicare program, often referred to as payers. Um, Life sciences often refers to those molecules and formularies that are designed and developed and marketed by drug companies. Like you could sort of segment it in many ways, and there's probably much better, approaches than I've just described, but or not better, but like those are the common ways to think about it. I would say that regardless of how you segment it, one of the hard things about the US healthcare system is you can't get away from the interplay across these segments that for most Americans in an employer-based insurance plan, you have this sort of triad where you have the patient yourself getting care, you have the provider who's probably giving you care in different settings and different, it could be a telemedicine visit, it could be an office visit, could be in a hospital. And then you have the payer who's paying for that service. Could be the government, could be a large insurer like us. Um, and so, you know, sometimes what makes this industry so hard is that there's no escaping that interplay today in the US and understanding like, yeah, I'm going to serve a hospital system, but a hospital is going to get a certain portion of its patient revenue from a payer, even though it's serving a patient. Like so, um, it's just something that it's taken a long time for me to more deeply understand. Maybe even today, I'm still learning so much about that interaction.
So this is quite interesting because one of the things that you mentioned is understanding the domain of healthcare. So let's assume somebody maybe works at a company kind of like Nokia, interested in joining the healthcare space. What is the role of domain expertise? So does the person, let's say if it's an engineer or if it's a project manager or a product manager, what is the requirements or the need regarding domain expertise? Or is it okay just to know software?
I think, and this is more of my own philosophy, it's like coming from an engineering background in my undergraduate work, um, I think it's impossible to say, like, whether it's healthcare or any other industry, understanding the problems deeply of customers in that segment, players in that segment, is a prerequisite. And so it's impossible to say like, hey, you could be without domain understanding and do your job well. That being said, if you haven't spent 15 years in healthcare, which I think is what your question is getting at, can you get into this space? I think the answer is yes, but you have to accept the fact that you will likely face a steep climb, at least today. And I think it's better today than it was 8 years ago in in working to understand the complexity of at least the US healthcare system.
Interesting. And For somebody who does not know the field, we look into the software space. We see the job hiring is not amazing now. It used to be very strong. Now it's maybe less as strong. We see large companies in the software space having some hiring freezes or layoffs. We see smaller companies potentially struggle with raising capital. What are your thoughts regarding the hiring situation in the healthcare space? Is it similar maybe to software? Is it maybe better? Is it worse?
I'm probably not an expert. They're much um, um, stronger people who understand this market and the market dynamics. More senior people here. I will say, um, I think like any industry, maybe even more so than any industry, um, our business growth, our business opportunity, um, is defined by where we think we can grow and expand our business and return a profit to shareholders. Now, a large portion of our business is employer-based insurance, and so if the wider economy is contracting, that'll necessarily impact our business. Um, but there's some, I think, macro trends in our favor, which is that we have a growing and aging population here in the United States. Many more people are going to be enrolled in or eligible for Medicare in this year and in the coming years, and those macro trends exist. Like they're somewhat ambiguous, unassailable, so that will require us to continue. We continue to serve those markets very well, but it represents maybe the next area of growth for all companies in the healthcare space. And so those demographics are in the favor of us seeing maybe growth in the long term. But like with any company, I think in the short term, we do face headwinds just like the other tech companies.
Interesting. I do want to ask you a question about AI and analytics. So this is an area that you are very familiar with. You manage a group in that area. And we hear a lot about OpenAI and other innovations from other companies like Bard and others that are coming out, and other AI technologies. AI is, as an overall, is not a new field, even though there is some development in that field. How do you see? I know that many of my students are asking, "Hey, I want to go into an AI because it's a place that's growing with a lot of new opportunities." How do you see the field of AI or in analytics or the AI in healthcare? Maybe how things are changing. Maybe if there's some new career opportunities for people. How do you see those dynamics?
Um, I think it's an incredibly exciting time for all of us in healthcare and maybe all of us um, affiliated with quote unquote AI. Um, Today, uh, today is April 21st, and the pace at which we're innovating around large language models is astounding for any industry. Um, and so, that being said, I will freely admit I have no idea where this is going. Like,
Mm.
just I continue to be blown away with things that I like, not things that are announced almost daily with respect to large language models, both foundational models from places like OpenAI, Anthropic, Microsoft, Google, Amazon, as well as sort of the things that we can do with it. Like I was just a couple hours ago just fooling around with Auto GPT to learn more about it. So I think I'm just, excited, but I'm really not sure where this all goes because it's just happening so quickly. I
Mhm.
will say that the fidelity and performance of large language models is extremely exciting and extremely impactful for healthcare. One thing that, your students may not really appreciate is how um, I don't know if fragmentation is the right word, but like, um, you know, communications throughout the healthcare system in the US are quite verbose. We don't have like efficient transaction systems like online advertising and stuff like that. Right, in some cases we do when it comes to claims and things like that. But you know, I'll give you an example just from my own life. Like I see a doctor and then I go see a specialist. Maybe I just saw a specialist the other day for some knee pain I was having, and the doctor that saw me for my knee pain will still write a letter back to my primary care physician, giving a summary of what we talked about, along with the fact that there are notes in the chart and stuff like that. And this kind of letter communication happens everywhere in our healthcare system sometimes, or at least I'm always surprised how much of that exists. And so, um, synthesizing and understanding, verbose language-based communications and documentation is a big part of our healthcare system, and so inherently will be impacted by these large language models. How, I'm not sure, but you can infer that there's a great opportunity for our efficiency and productivity.
Yeah, that sounds a very promising area to continue exploring. And thinking about maybe the software engineer or the product manager or the project manager considering coming into the field, when they're considering that, let's say, versus a traditional, maybe a SaaS company, who might enjoy working in healthcare and who might not? Kind of, how's the nature of maybe some of the work that's done, some of the things you mentioned regarding, for example, the interconnectivity of different parts of it, maybe some areas of domain expertise. How do you think maybe it influences the overall job satisfaction of different people?
Product management is hard in healthcare, um, maybe more so than software engineering. I think we touched on the domain expertise. I think that's part of it. Um, I think there's also like software product management, like if you're coming from a tech space, you implicitly assume your products are software. But if you're in the healthcare sector, you know, a product could be um, uh, a group of or staffing of home healthcare professionals, um, and so that product could involve um, a run book to hire, a run book to answer the phone, a run book to how to address customers when you visit them, patient customers when you visit them. Like, I think that's a big, one of many steps in this process for a product manager to realize, like, hey, if you come from a SaaS world, you probably thought that software is your product. That's not the case in healthcare. And so you've got to be aware of that and self-aware that, what's considered quote unquote products in the healthcare industry may not start with lines of code. Once you get back to that hurdle, then the question is like, how deeply do you understand the domain and understand that triad I was talking about? Because it's inescapable to understand what value your software is bringing. And then, the other big challenge is, and I alluded to this at the beginning, this is high stakes to some extent. We use that term sometimes in AI ML. Like, you know, um, how you test and validate customer propositions in other industries with software might have a lower bar. Um, but this idea like of an MVP is possible in healthcare, but you have to be much more thoughtful in what that entails and what potential risks that could incur to patients, to providers, to anyone trying to deliver care.
Yeah, this is very interesting because it might reflect in maybe looking into different elements of someone's resume or someone's experience or maybe someone's education. What are maybe some things you can highlight regarding the type of things that maybe you're looking for when you're evaluating different candidates, from evaluating experience, evaluating education, like since everything is kind of connected, like that person can come from computer science, from maybe electrical engineering, or maybe something from healthcare, or how do you think about those type of experience and degrees? What are you looking for in a resume?
You know, obviously, if there is previous healthcare experience, at least on the product management side, that can be a plus, but it's not a barrier. Like, I think whether it's in the resume or in the interview, like having very clear examples of very complex business and systems interaction um, is a must. Like I look for that when I talk to people, like especially if they're entering this space. It's like, could is there a comparable experience they've been through? And I'm not saying healthcare is the only place where there's complexity, but where you have um, a highly complex, somewhat regulated market, um, you know, do you have examples there where you were able to um, understand the problem deeply, um, find solutions, articulate those solutions well, deliver? Um, that's what I would be looking for, I think, when at least I look at product managers.
Interesting. And about people that come in from, let's say, software or maybe different educational background, is there like certain degrees? Like, is that engineering degrees or computer science or what type of
Um,
academics?
I I tend not to get too hung up on the academics. Obviously, great academic performance is great, but um, it's getting to that question of did they answer something complex, something with a great deal of ambiguity, and simplify it, where you had number of actors with different intentions and incentives interplaying off each other. Um, I don't think there's anything that is in like I took the course on X or I did this on Y that I could say prescriptively, if you have that, that's a way in. But it's really just regardless of where you came from, like, can you describe solving those types of problems,
Hmm.
whether you're an engineer or a product manager?
So another thing that you talked about is potentially something that will be in the resume or in the interview process. Is the interview process maybe what people can expect coming from software in the healthcare space or maybe in the area of the healthcare insurance space? Is it an interview process, like say with the standard large companies, composed from maybe some behavioral questions or some like a software engineering question, or is there something different?
No, I think you first off, I would say, the kind of like deep behavioral and engineering questioning that you might see in um, you know, large tech companies like Google or Amazon, as well as new entrants. Um, you'll see a range of that. We try to do that in certain circumstances, but like other industries, whether it's healthcare, banking, retail, I think you'll see a range of interview approaches because many of these companies, like ourselves included, have been around for decades, and may not have adopted some of the more common ways to interview that you see in large tech companies.
Okay, so maybe prepare in the same way. So now we're almost out of time. So last question. For those of us listening, maybe in the software space, maybe in another space, maybe gaming space, but are interested in software careers, looking to get into healthcare. What are kind of your top tips to how to start with the evaluation process, assuming they don't know much about the space?
Yeah, I think there are a couple of things. I think a lot of we've seen a lot of people enter this space with that background, and they've driven a lot of great change in this space. Um, New entrant companies, new models for delivering care. all like sort of born from other industries and deep digital backgrounds. I think I think if you did a survey of everyone who entered this space from outside of healthcare and maybe from large tech, um, I would suspect most people have been humbled by their by how complex this is. And I think if you want to break in, if you want to understand, if you want to be successful, I think you deeply need to understand how this triad works. I keep on saying it, but like how reimbursement flows, how care is delivered, and how that interplays between the patient, provider, and payer, somewhat simplistically. And if you appreciate that complexity, it'll also give you a framework to understand, you know, where, like you say, you're starting at a new company or you're looking at a new company, trying to figure out where they're on that spectrum. And if you can't, not that you'll put them on one part of that that triangle, um, but if they're not clear about how where they think they sit in that triangle, that should maybe be a red flag for you.
Understand. That's a good tip. Hey, thank you very much, Sanjay, for coming and speaking with me. And thank you for those great insights. I learned a ton about the healthcare space, and it's good to chat with you again. It's been a couple of years, but it's good to chat again.
Yeah, thank you. I love it.
Thank you very much.
Talk to you soon.